Mic check 1 2. It's the Y2K collector, and I'm here to do a rapid fire recap of all of the pickups for the month of May. Now, I do have a few more games that'll come in here or there, but I don't know when this week I'll have another time, to be able to make this video. So I figured I'd go ahead and just do it now so that you guys could see what May looked like for me. May felt like a very long month, but we had a good amount of pickups. So I'm going to start with the most modern systems and then just kind of work my way back. So we're going to start with the PlayStation 5, and we have Astrobot here. This is one of the two PlayStation 5 games that have been on my wish list since the PS5 came out. It was Astrobot and Stellar Blade. And Stellar Blade I have, Astrobot I did not. And so I picked this up as part of a buy one or buy two, get one free. And this one came in. So glad to have added this one. Also, as a part of a buy two get one, I got the Mega Man Zero ZX collection on the Nintendo Switch. Great set of Zero games. Glad to add this one. And then the Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, another solid Switch pickup that I was glad to add during the month of May. Now, a couple of other ones that are more recent, one of which you may not have known about, is, well, not Capcom Fighting Collection 2, because a lot of people know about Capcom Fighting Collection 2. This was one that I was glad to pick up. I doubted the gameplay on this one, but once I actually played it, turns out it's not so bad. So this was one that I was actually glad to add into the collection. And then this one here, Cyber Shadow. Now, this was one that I had been waiting on for quite some time. This is a very fun 8-bit styled game that not a lot of people, I think, know about. This has been available for download for years now, but Super Rare finally released a physical version of this game. So I am stoked to have this in my collection. I don't pick up many of these types of Switch games, but when I do see one that I really want to get my hands on, I snag it, and I'm glad that I got Cyber Shadow in the collection. So very cool pickup there. So that's the more modern stuff. Now we'll kind of work our way back. So let's take a look at a couple of these 3DS pickups. We have Mario Tennis Open and Mario and Luigi Paper Jam. These were also included as part of a buy to get one on the 3DS. I don't buy a ton of 3DS games, but whenever I can get them free or like a 420 for 40 promo, I'll go ahead and do that. Was able to snag these on a deal, so was glad to add those. And then we have the Nintendo Wii a pickup here, which is Spyborgs. This is an interesting kind of like run and gun shooter on the Nintendo Wii. I think this game would have been more valuable, or I think this would have had a lot more appeal, I should say, if you were able to use a classic controller for this game. But you can only use the Wii remote and the nunchuck, which is a little bit clunky for a game of this type, like a shooter. This is also done by Capcom, so this has some decent gameplay, but one that is relatively cheap, and I think it's cheap just because of the controls of the game. So this is like a $5 to $10 game. Snag this up at GameStop. All right, so now we'll go ahead and kind of continue working our way back. We're probably not going to go in specific order of retro. I want to say anything that's older than the Wii. I guess I'll clump that all into retro. Now I'll kind of show you guys some of the more inexpensive games or low-dollar games that I got in May, which were still dope. We have a few PlayStation 1 games here. So we have C12, Final Resistance, Wild Number 9, and Rascal. So these were all picked up from a mom and pop shop that had just a bunch of decent retro games there. C12 is kind of like an open world run and gun shooter on the PlayStation 1, which you don't see a lot of those. It just wasn't common to see something very open on the PlayStation 1. This is one of those games, and I think they did a decent job with this. It's not the most rare game, but it is a very good one. Wild Number 9 is like a 2.5D side scroller with interesting controls. You basically use like this this kind of like magnetic type of arm to grab enemies and slam them. Very interesting gameplay on Wild Number 9, but I think this is an underrated game for sure. And then Rascal. Rascal, in concept, is a great game. The controls just make it a horrible game to play. But in terms of like graphics, I would say that it's almost on par with like Ape Escape. And this could have been a really good game had they just gotten the controls right. So 3 decent PlayStation 1 games there that were added to the collection. And then one PlayStation 1 game that I wasn't super fond of, and that is Blood Omen Legacy of Kain. This plays a lot like a 1994 PC top-down hack and slash game. Nothing super impressive, but it was one that I picked up in a trade. So glad to have it all the same. Then we're going to take a look at some of the handheld pickups because we had a few. So we had some Game Boy Advance pickups. We'll take a look at some of these. So first off, we got a couple of the Naruto games, Naruto 1 and 2, the Ninja Console games. This is a very interesting series of side-scrolling beat-em-up games. Again, I think these are underrated games on the Game Boy Advance, but these were ones that I added to the collection. Also, I got this like anime style like Game Boy Advance movie. So I don't really have a lot of those like cinema style games on the Game Boy Advance, but this was one that came in that bundle. So pick that up. Also got a copy of Lilo and Stitch as well as Spider-Man 3. These were all picked up. Well, these two were picked up as a part of a buy two get one. So was glad to be able to or no, I think these were actually 4 under 10 for 20, I believe, or 4 under 20 for 40. One of those promos was where I got these, so I was glad to get that. Also a part of the 4 under 20 for 40 was Donkey Kong Country on the Game Boy Color. That was actually $19.99 exactly, so that fell right under the threshold for the promo. Similar story with Battletoads as well. This fell right in the threshold because Battletoads was $19.99. I don't think these games are worth $19.99, but I got them for $9.50 a piece, and I do think they're worth it at that price range. So snagged those up. Also, was able to get my hands on a copy of Mario and Donkey Kong for the Game Boy Advance, as well as Mega Man Zero. So just some more promo pickups, man. A lot of promo pickups, especially at the beginning of the month. Took full advantage. Was glad to add these. Then also in that bunch, we had a couple more Game Boy Advance pickups that included Hamtaro Ham Ham Heartbreak, as well as Castlevania Circle of the Moon. So some more pickups there. And then we had Wario Land, which is a classic game that I was glad to add back into the collection, as well as Pokemon Gold, Yellow, and Silver for the Game Boy and the Game Boy Color. So some really solid pickups here in terms of handhelds. Was glad to add these. And then probably not a banger, because I did save all the bangers for last. I'm going to show you about 9 or 10 games that would be considered the grails of May. But we did have a very interesting pickup, and that is Mega Man Extreme 2. Picked this up from a mom and pop shop in a trade. Very glad to have this. This is basically like a cross between Mega Man and Mega Man X. On the Game Boy Color, they called it the Mega Man Extreme series. Has a lot of elements of Mega Man X in it. Very interesting. Was glad to add that. So a bunch of handheld pickups, along with some PlayStation stuff so far. Was glad to add a bunch of that, along with all of the more modern stuff, including the Wii, the 3DS, and then of course all of the Switch pickups and Astrobot. So we'll go ahead and shuffle all that to the side. Then we had one N64 pickup in Bomberman 64. Very cool pickup. Glad I was able to get this with a decent label. You know, this was ordered online, so was glad to add that. Then 2 Super Nintendo pickups. Gotta love when you can get Super Nintendo games. I already have a copy of Super Metroid, but it is the Player's Choice version with a completely different, not a completely different label, but the label is different. I like this standard label. I actually had a copy before and traded it away, and I told myself if I got another chance to get this copy, I would get it back. And so I got it back. Super Metroid is one of my favorite games of all time. And then Brain Lord, an interesting top-down action RPG game. So very, very interesting. I don't see a lot of top-down action RPGs where you can jump. And just the ability to be able to jump in this game, I thought was very interesting. So this is one I'm going to play some more. But Metroid and Brain Lord, 2 really cool games to get. Got a copy of The Legend of Zelda The Adventure of Link. So this is basically Zelda 2. This has to be the cleanest copy of Zelda I have ever seen. Like super duper clean. So was definitely glad to add that one. And it came with the Nintendo sleeve. I don't know if I'm going to be able to slide that in there. So we may just have to shift that one off to the side. So really cool pickup there. Then we have Chocobo's Dungeon 2. I've shown you guys this one. This is a pretty clean PlayStation 1 pickup. We had one PSP game in May, God of War Chains of Olympus. This was actually a pretty sweet find. This was complete. All the disc-based games in this video are going to be complete with a few exceptions. I'll let you know which those are. But God of War Chains of Olympus was a pretty sweet find. Was glad to add this one back into the collection. Had a bunch of Xbox original games. So I'll show you the first three here. So the first three games were Fatal Frame 2, Director's Cut, Ultimate Spider-Man, and Buffy the Vampire Slayer. So some pretty solid Xbox games. Nothing really exclusive, well, aside from Buffy, to the Xbox. But solid titles, all complete in box. Got good deals on all three of these. So I was definitely glad to add these three to the collection. And then we have another three original Xbox games in Panzer Dragoon Orta, Buffy the Vampire Slayer Chaos Bleeds, and Ninja Gaiden Black. So another solid grouping of original Xbox games. Obviously the exclusives being Panzer Dragoon and Ninja Gaiden Black. Two awesome games. Really good stuff to just add to the collection. I'm really psyched about these Buffy games, believe it or not. I think I'm more excited about the Buffy games than anything else. I've been trying to get my hands on both Buffy games for a long time, especially this exclusive Xbox one with Sarah Michelle Gellar on the cover. Man, classic right there. But anyway, added those Xbox games to the collection, so that was a blast. And then three GameCube games. All three of these GameCube, no, sorry, two of these GameCube games were complete in box. One is missing the manual. So we got Mario Golf, we got Batman Vengeance, and we got Def Jam Vendetta. So three amazing GameCube games that were added to the collection. It kind of sucks that Def Jam Vendetta was not complete, but hey, listen, I will still take it. Batman Vengeance and Mario Golf were complete on the GameCube, and was just glad to be able to add these to the collection in May as well. It's a very busy month, very busy month. Okay, so I wanted to kind of blow through all of those games pretty quickly so we could finally get to the bangers of the month. So let's dive into those. So I'm going to start with an Xbox 360 banger. I just showed this recently, so you guys probably know what this is, and that is Operation Darkness on the Xbox 360. I think this was exclusive to the Xbox 360. Atlas banger. This was complete in box as well. I know that at one point this was like a $250 game. This is, I think at this point, like $100 or so. I picked it up for like 45 bucks, so I wasn't mad at the pricing at all. Went ahead and added that to the collection. Then we had another pretty solid pickup on the PlayStation 2. We had Guitaru Man on the PlayStation 2. This is one that I've been keeping an eye out for years. Unfortunately, this one did not come with the manual, but it did come with the disc, and it came with the original case and cover art. So I will take that for a game like Guitaru Man. I don't see this in the wild that often. This is one of the rare ones. I do have Guitaru Man on the PSP, but this just plays a little bit different on the PS2. And this is a very interesting rhythm game where you attack with rhythms. You kind of have to time when you got to make sure you're on beat, basically. This game will challenge your rhythm and your timing. So definitely a fun game to play for sure. Different. You don't really see a lot of games like this anymore. So that was a very fun and interesting one. And since we're on the PlayStation 2, we might as well stick with it. And I'm going to show you one that you just saw a moment ago. Fatal Frame 2, again, on the PlayStation 2. This was complete in box this time. This one is complete in box on the PS2. Was glad to find this one. I actually ordered this game online before finding Fatal Frame 2 complete in box in store at a GameStop. So this was already in the air and on its way to me when I found the Fatal Frame 2 on the original Xbox, but I may keep both because I think that Xbox version is like a director's cut or something like that. So all in all, a very solid find, very cool pickup as well. So another really good add to the collection. Now we're going to dive into some more of the rarer stuff. So probably save the rarest items for last. Ones that, at least rare to me, these are games that I don't see quite often. So first we'll start off with Pokemon Coliseum. So this was a game that came in from an online order. Was stoked to get this complete in box. You don't really get a lot of these games sent to you complete in box from GameStop, but this one had a very good looking disc, the manual, and the cover art, which was actually in pretty good shape. The game itself is in phenomenal shape. I gotta give them their props. So this was a very solid pickup for me. So I was glad to add that one. Then we have a very cool pickup, Dragon Ball Adventure. If you've never played a beat 'em up on the Game Boy Advance, this is, in my opinion, top 5 beat 'em ups on the Game Boy Advance. The last time I said that, I know a lot of people were mentioning Astro Boy. Astro Boy is a good one. I'm not going to deny it, but Dragon Ball Adventure to me is on another level. And surprisingly enough, because I've beaten Dragon Ball Adventure at least 3 or 4 times, but surprisingly enough, the Naruto games play very similar to the Dragon Ball Adventure game, and Naruto 2 specifically looks a lot like Dragon Ball Adventure. Some really good 2D pixelized graphics on this one. So was glad to add Dragon Ball Adventure to the collection as well. Here we have one that honestly I was shocked to find in store, and that was Resident Evil Gaiden. For those of you who follow the channel, you know the trials and tribulations I went through with this game. It was not working when I first picked it up, but I had to pull out, or I had to go buy a soldering iron and reflow the chip so that the game would actually play, and I got it to work. So this is probably one of my favorite pickups of the month, just because it challenged me to step outside my comfort zone and actually fix a video game, which I've never done before. So this was like super cool, and I'm glad that I had that experience just fixing this game, and it makes it mean a lot more to me just in that regard. All right, and then going back to the GameCube, right? So with a GameCube, we got another game. This was sent via in the mail. This is a recent pickup, so a lot of you saw me mention this already. Eternal Darkness on the GameCube, and again, was pleasantly surprised when this one came complete in box. Was blown away by that. Anytime you can get a complete in box GameCube game from GameStop's website, that's always a blast. So was glad to add this one into the collection. This is gonna find a new home on the Y2K shelf, so was glad about that. Then a more unexpected pickup for someone like me, but this was actually a game that I picked up during a trade at a mom and pop shop, and that is a very decent copy of Pokemon Emerald. A lot of people asked me if it was real. It is real. I did open it. I checked it. It does have the little imprint there on the label. So this is a genuine copy of Pokemon Emerald. Was glad to at least trade for something of equal value for what I traded in, because I traded in a lot of stuff and they just didn't have anything that was grabbing my attention. But this version of Pokemon is actually a very good looking game. Like I grew up playing Pokemon Red and Blue. This game makes me want to give it a spin. So I decided to keep this game to give it a play to see if it's as good as I remember Red and Blue being. So I got a few Pokemon games this month. I've got enough Pokemon to kind of relive the memories and experience something new. So this is definitely one of the better pickups of the month. And then last but not least, of course, the one that you already knew that I got, and that was this copy of Chibi Robo for the GameCube. Sad story is that this one did not come with a manual, but it did come with the game and the cover artwork, and this is just a rare thing to see. This was a GameStop online order. Didn't believe that it was going to come even with the cover art. I honestly just thought it was going to be disc only, and even at disc only, I was willing to keep it, but the fact that it did come with a case and artwork made it all the more merrier for me. So that does it for me this month. There were probably a few games that I left out, and I have some more games coming, but like I said, I did want to make this video. We had a mix of GameStop, some mom and pop shop stuff, but the one thing that we didn't have was any local reseller trades this month. So we started the year off strong. We had a reseller trade in January, February, March, and I even think one in April, but none in May. So we'll see what happens in June. Thank you for stopping by. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Let me know which game you like the most in the comments down below, and I'll see you in the next one. It's the Y2K Collector. Take it easy.